If you zoom out to the long history that got us here, one thing you can say for sure is that smart guardians didn't keep us from an absolutist takeover. We had hordes of thoughtful people trying to prevent an authoritarian overrule in the United States, and here we are stuck with one. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on that with me and to do it without the usual exit ramps. I do mean smart. There's a move we could make at this point to say, well, if I were in charge of the world, I'd have done it differently. I'd have known what it would take. I don't think that's the case. I think we had some of our brightest minds trying to prevent an asshole takeover. We really tried. We really tried to prevent an authoritarian takeover. And it didn't work. I mean, just think of the things we tried. We tried public education. We tried a free society. We landed in this windfall of resources so people felt safe and secure enough to be able to get creative. We were born in the Enlightenment, a period when people were really trying to figure out how you'd keep authoritarian rule from taking over. And here we are. You could say, no, actually, we really didn't have that good a start. There were bad seeds planted from the get-go. And I get that. 12 generations of slavery is no way to start a free society. And once again, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to, well, if I were in charge of the world, I would know, because I'm a virtuous good guy, exactly what we should do. I don't want to go there. It's not interesting. It's boring. It's actually indulgent, which is a point I'll be coming back to. The sweetest thing someone said to me at the point of my divorce, 17 years of marriage and an acquaintance, really, nothing more than that, said, how long have you been married? And I said, 17 years. And she said, nice long run. I just thought that was beautiful. It was exactly what I needed to hear at the time. And we could also go that route about the United States. 250 years, nice long run. Nothing lasts forever. But I don't go there exactly either. I'm fascinated by the way that with all our concentrated, concerted effort, we were unable to keep authoritarianism from taking over. And so here we are. And I wonder how we could do better, even if we never get another chance. That is, if America was the last best hope, and I know lots of reasons why that's just my American dream chauvinism talking, but if the world in general is turning towards authoritarian rule, and we never get a chance, I still am interested in this question. To me, it's the most universal and fundamental question, not just here on Earth for humans, but for all intelligent life forms anywhere in the universe. All organisms are intelligent, but we mean something different when we talk about intelligent life forms elsewhere. What we're talking about is organisms we can communicate with, communicate ideas or concepts with. To me, the big question anywhere in the universe would be, how do you prevent authoritarian rule? How do you prevent absolutists or assholes or absolutists, whatever name you gave them, narcissist, gaslighter, I don't care about the name. I care about the absolutism, the people who act like they have solved reality and are therefore authorized or entitled to take over the world. If I could leave a handbook for extraterrestrials, it would be on how to better diagnose, prevent, and deal with absolutists. And like my real book on the subject, What's Up with A-Holes, How to Spot and Stop Them Without Becoming One, I would dedicate it to future researchers who would do a better job than I have on it. In a way, it's a kind of a new subject, and in a way, it's a very old subject. I spend a lot of time with past psychoproctologists of all kinds. They didn't call themselves psychoproctologists. They studied the nature of evil. And I'm just fascinated by their attempts to figure out how do you prevent evil or absolutism. One of my favorites is Arthur Koestler. And here's a quote that influences my approach. And this is from Koestler. For the last 3,000 years, Hebrew prophets, Greek philosophers, Indian mystics, Chinese sages, Christian preachers, French humanists, English utilitarians, German moralists, American pragmatists has discussed the perils of violence and appealed to man's better nature without much noticeable effect. There must be a reason for this failure. The reason, I believe, lies in a series of fundamental misconceptions concerning the main causes which compelled man to make such a mess of his history, which prevented him from learning the lessons of the past, and which now put his survival in question. The first of these misconceptions is putting the blame for man's predicament on his selfishness and greed. In a word, on the aggressive, self-assertive tendencies of the individual. The point I shall try to make is that selfishness is not the primary culprit, and that appeals to man's better nature were bound to be ineffectual because the main danger lies precisely in what we are wont to call his better nature. In other words, I would like to suggest that the integrative tendencies of the individual are incomparably more dangerous than his self-assertive tendencies. The sermons of the reformers were bound to fall on deaf ears because they put the blame where it did not belong. He goes on from there to talk about public executions and the dark Puritan thrills he finds in that. The glow-to-holic satisfaction of feeling like we're the good guys punishing the bad guys. When moral standards become universally accepted within a culture, they become cover for immoral behavior. Christianity is a classic example of this. It is the world's most successful lifestyle brand. By successful, I mean we associate it with the positive. I don't need to pick on Christianity. I could do the same thing about any of the other moral standards that become, you could say, saturated across society. But Christianity is a classic example of this, that people would brand themselves as good because they are Christians. And then that becomes cover for whatever behavior they choose to indulge in. From my perspective, Christianity, as touted in the Bible, is sold as the one true way to live, but actually reads as a catalog of rationalizations for doing whatever you want. Not every Christian takes it that way, Lord knows. Many Christians really get their shit together through their deference to a higher power. I'm not arguing against Christianity, I'm talking about something systemic in humans. As I suggested in my last video, and this is in the spirit of Koestler's comments here, I'm interested in the ways to admit to and vent our dark sides safely. We all have an aggressive tendency, even those who aggressively insist that they are purer, kinder, nicer, more loving, more humble than other people. I don't say that out of cynicism. I'm human, you're human. We have this tendency in us. I think it's a product of having language and therefore swimming among all of these concepts. Concepts that scare us and concepts that affirm us. And the whole confirmation bias towards preferring or embracing the ideas that flatter us over those that insult us. So I am suggesting that we get better at admitting to, managing, and venting our dark sides. My last video was about Idsercise, that is, exercising our ids in safe ways. I think we're much more likely to prevent authoritarian control if we don't get into high horse battles with bad people as though it proves we're good people. I understand why we would do that. We gird our loins for battle, but I don't think it is working. I think that's what Koestler is pointing to in that quote. 3,000 years of trying to tell people, be nice like us. That whole preaching to the choir thing, the whole holier than thou thing, I don't think it's working. I think we need some of that, especially with young people, with children. But at some point we have to grow up and admit that we're still a little childlike, all of us, into old age. The need to feel exceptional, exceptionally good, in contrast to the exceptionally bad, whoever gets in our way. I think that is the root, the fertilized root in us for the authoritarian urge. And it's got nothing to do with what lifestyle brand you adopt. That's not the issue. It's about whether or not we can figure out ways to safely vent our urge to feel exceptional. Now, you've probably heard this before, goes without saying, but bears repeating. I have a study group. I don't make any money off of it. I'm not trying to. It's a free group. It's a study group that meets every other Sunday in the morning. I might change the time just to see if other people show up for it. About 150 people have signed up for it. About 30 show up for it. We are just dealing with these kinds of questions. And in real practical terms. We're not doing the abstractions. My videos are for the abstract approaches to it, like me talking about 3,000 years of history and extraterrestrials here. No, in the study group, all we do is we report on things we have tried with an absolutist, and we try to figure out ways to do a more successful job in reaching them, in planting seeds of doubt in those people who, from my perspective, have become addicted like heroin addicts. Heroin was so named because it made every user feel like a hero. And I think that's what Trumpism or any other grandstanding we've solved reality movement of righteous indignation is doing. So the question for us, the practical everyday question for how to deal with your parents or your friends or your business associates is, how do you engage with people there's no talking to? And people who are not receptive. How do you deal with the unreceptive? The absolutists. What do you say? What do you try? What gestures do you make? What are the better strategies? What works, what doesn't work? What I keep on having to point out is that what doesn't work is you trying to tear them down from their high horse so you can mount the steed instead. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. If we just get into infallibility death matches, we're doomed. That is, where either I'm right about everything and you're wrong about everything, or vice versa. I think we got to stop that. And I think we have to get much better at admitting we're all pieces of work. All of us human beings are pieces of work. Not our fault. We didn't start out this way. We didn't fall from grace or anything. We rose from slime and then ended up with all these concepts we have to wrangle. You know, all the disappointing threats and missed opportunities that can keep us up at night. So I always end the study group. So just email me if you're at all interested in joining. I don't take roll. I don't care if you show up. It's great that people are showing up and that we're just trying to be practical on these questions. But I always end the meeting with gratitude and congratulations. I am grateful to have people thinking about these questions. What would we do differently next time to better guard against authoritarian, absolutist takeover? And also congratulations to them, because to me, this is a really important, meaty question. How do you humbly humble humans who will say or do anything to avoid human humility? How do you deal with these conceptual heroin addicts, the people who have gotten addicted to robotically playing hero? They could have a lifestyle brand, they could have a cause. Their cause could just be because I said so, because I feel important to myself. It doesn't matter to me. What they claim is the source of their authority. It's just that pretense that we have solved reality that I study and find fascinating and invite you to study as well. I don't think the current technology, including mine, including all my ideas about how to deal with difficult people, I don't think any of them are good enough yet. I think this is really hard work. And because you're talking about people who will really say or do anything to avoid any success in reaching them as a human curious being. They're trying to make sure that nothing works. So if you find that question interesting, how do you engage with people there's no talking to? Sign up for the group, but more than that, congratulations. You're on the most important question. The most important question wasn't what you would do if you were in charge of the world. It's how to interact with fellow human beings, many of them becoming addicted in complicated times to oversimplistic answers that won't work but make them feel good in the moment. That's what I think we're up against. That is, reality has gotten extremely complicated and some people are just tapping out and saying, well, the answer is simple and if I were in charge of the world. That's not a fruitful path. But asking how do you engage with people there's no talking to, congratulations if you find that an interesting question. I think it's life-size, and I think when I'm done, I won't have completed the work. I consider it a fruitful exercise in futility for me to try to find the definitive approach to engaging with people that there's no talking to. Fruitful exercise in futility. I won't achieve it. I would never claim it, like so many of the authorities on dealing with difficult people do. And I find it really fruitful to deal with that question.